8 months age range. If your puppy is above or below that, that's okay. First things first, before we start any exercises for the day, I want to cover the magical age range that your puppies are in right now. So between 4 and 8 months old, they've got a couple growth spurts coming up. Typically around 6 months old is when you see a growth spurt, not necessarily physically, but a lot of puppies suddenly forget how to do things that you've been working with them, and they just seem like they don't know how to do any kind of training thing anymore. That's pretty normal. I've had that happen quite frequently when I have people tell me the dog doesn't seem to know what they're doing, they've stopped listening, they don't seem to remember their own name. I ask how old the puppy is, and usually they just recently turned 6 months old. So that's normal. It doesn't last forever, but it is sort of the mark of the puppy is getting closer to being a teenager, and you'll have ups and downs while the puppy is a teenager. So you'll have really good days, and then you'll have some not very good days. When the not very good days happen, try to just let it roll off your back. The dog isn't ruined. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just part of them growing up. Our puppies, we have our own breeding program, so we are trying to produce dogs that have good temperament and good health in order to be working dogs, but that doesn't make them like a special magical type of puppy that doesn't ever have trouble. So they're still puppies. They're going to go through all the normal puppyhood things where they suddenly decide to try to jump and put their feet on the counter, or try to jump up on the couch even though they're 7 months old and they've never tried that before. So all of that is normal. It's going to happen to some extent, and just don't panic when it happens. If you're not sure how to deal with it, you can reach out and ask for help, but for the most part, it's just they're going through puppyhood stages, and it'll get better at some point. They will start to get more hormones in. So for the female dogs, they could come into season, typically we don't see it earlier than 7 or 8 months. That should be about the earliest they might come into season. And for the males, they might get more interested in other dogs. My own male dog, he is not neutered. He is not yet a full-grown adult dog, and so he finds all dogs interesting, whether they are spayed or neutered, male or female. He thinks that he needs to court all of them. He's trying to figure out life. So that tends to happen. They may start marking on things. Marking is when they do just little quick spurts of urine versus fully releasing their bladder. If the dog is lifting its leg and they're peeing on something, but it's like a full bladder release, so it's a good amount of urine, that's fine. Lifting their leg on something isn't necessarily a bad thing if they're emptying their bladder. If they start getting into the habit of you're walking and every couple steps they stop to pee, and then they pee a little bit more, and then they pee a little bit more, that can get annoying. If you're on a walk, you can just, keep walking with them and just be like, nope, we're gonna keep on moving. If they're in your backyard and they're peeing on bushes and they're peeing on the fence, that's not an issue. Marking in the house or marking on people, that is an issue. If that happens, please let us know. And there are some things that you can buy so that you can put on the dog to keep them from having accidents and ruining floors or peeing on people and things like that. So as they start to move into being a teenager, there's lots of fun changes coming up with their hormones, and so their brains as well. The other thing that will start to happen the closer you get to 8 months or so is they go through something called a fear period. It's also called a sensitive period, and that means that things that had previously been familiar to them or not scary are cause for suspicion. And so there could be a trash can across the street, it's always been there, but suddenly your dog sees it and they're like, I don't know what that is, I don't trust that. And so they growl at it or they shy away from it and they don't want to get close to it. The pretty like textbook definition or like example that people will tell me is they weren't afraid, they were fine with all of this stuff and now suddenly they're scared of things that they haven't been before, or they've seen my neighbor a bunch of times but now suddenly they don't want to go near my neighbor and they don't know, they're acting like they don't know who the neighbor is. It's a very noticeable change of they used to not be scared of something but now they suddenly are. It's a developmental part of their growth in their brain, and so don't freak out about it. Don't do extra things with them in order to try to fix it. So if you notice that they are acting spooky of things, let us know so that we can help you through it. The main thing is you don't want to overdo it and force them to confront those things that are scaring them, because that can make it worse in the long run. Giving them time to just kind of watch and sniff and investigate under their own power, as long as they're on a leash or in a fenced-in area, that's fine. But let's say, for example, that my dog is acting afraid of Julie. I don't want to drag the dog towards Julie. That's not going to help. If the dog wants to approach Julie on their own, then they can do that. But if they're acting like they don't want to get closer and they're putting on the brakes, don't force them to confront what they're freaking out about. More often than not, it ends up making it worse for them long term.
That's all right.
We've got a puppy on the loose today. I'm going to step on this.
Thank you.
Get her. Oh, get her. My goodness. The joy of puppies.
She's not afraid of Julie.
Does anyone have any questions on puppies becoming teenagers, being afraid of things, that fun stuff? Yes, question.
When they're jumping on things, so Moxie is 6.5 months. Jumping on things, she's counters, sitting on this one window bench that she never did before. I'm doing all the things I should do, I think. No pulling you, she's on a tether, pulling her off. Nothing seems to make a difference. I get this dewy-eyed, like dumb blonde look, I call it. I don't know what else to do. You just think it's the phase she's gonna eventually go out of.
So yes, so you definitely want to be consistent on what it is that she's allowed to do or what it is that she's not allowed to do, and you want to make sure other people in the home are consistent as well. So if there's other people in the house that aren't catching those things or are letting them slide, that's going to make her progress forward harder because she's getting a mixed message. So you want to make sure everybody in the house is definitely on the same page. That can be hard to do, but you want to try your best to get other family members, like, you have to tell her no when she goes up on that, or you have to pull her down. The other thing that you can do as best you can is try to make your house in a way that she can't get to things if possible. So baby gates, having the dog tied to something so that they can't get to a spot that you don't want them to get to. Like if I'm sitting and reading a book, if I just let my puppy kind of do his own thing and I'm sitting and reading a book, he's probably going to find trouble at some point. So I want to anchor the leash, to a piece of furniture that's not going to move, bolt it to the wall. I could anchor it to myself so that they can't get over to it. Even if I'm in the same room, if I'm just kind of doing my own life thing, they're probably going to get over to it at some point, and then they're going to try to get up on it. They will get the picture eventually that, hey, you really can't do that. Like, you have to stop. You're not going to get anything from it. But trying to prevent them from doing it in the first place should help. You can use things like some of our raisers have tried double-sided tape on the edge of counters or tinfoil, because then the dogs when they put their feet up, they don't like it, and then it's a deterrent from them doing it again. So that kind of stuff is an option.
Put cardboard on the bottom of the windows so that he can't look out if he does jump up there, which may make it less enticing.
Yep, so Julie said if you put cardboard on the bottom of the windows so that they can't see out the window, so then there's nothing interesting to watch. I also like, they make window film that's opaque, so it still lets light in, so that's a nice option too, because then it blocks the visual, because it's blurred out, but it still lets light into the house, because I prefer natural light. So that's an option. And
taking them, putting in, if you have an open environment crate,
Mhm.
living room or something in the area where they're, is that wrong to do? Will they see that as a punishment, to just put them sometimes in that, if they're?
it could work as a deterrent. A lot of the time, what you end up finding is that the dog does something, and then they go and they put themselves in the crate because they know it's coming. And so they still accomplished what they wanted, and they're like, I'll just put myself in the crate because I know you're gonna do this. So when that happens, you don't really win, because they still got that behavior accomplished, and they put themselves in the crate because they're like, this is what we do, this is the pattern. I do this, you yell, and then I go in the crate. So that happens sometimes. Some people will try the, coffee can with pennies in it to toss to startle them. That's an option. My big thing is the more you can prevent the dog from doing it or interrupt them before they get the chance, it better teaches them to just not do it, rather than, because if my dog jumps up on something and I startle them, they're startled, but they still got their feet up, and they still got the practice of putting their feet up on something and checking out the counter. And they might still go try it again, because next time, maybe you don't get to the can fast enough, so they put their feet up. Oh, I didn't get startled this time. I'm gonna try that again next time because nothing happened this time. So if you use deterrents, or you try to startle them, stuff like that, it has to be really consistent for the dog to get the message. Otherwise, they'll learn that sometimes I can do this and get away with it, and I just have to be sneaky enough. That's a good question. Any other questions? Okay, so